Hi, this is Abby Cadabby, and I'm continuing with my Embered Editor videos, and I'm going to do another video on combining and editing designs to hopefully show you some other tips and tricks that you can use when you're doing a design. So let's go ahead and get started. And so I wanted to embroider a hand towel for my house in Florida. And so it has a beach theme. And so I wanted a palm tree on my hand towel. So I looked through my designs and I had used this design to make a t-shirt for my husband because he does a lot of yard work. He doesn't own a company, but I kind of made it look like he did. But I don't want my beach towel or my hand towel to say Kevin's Landscaping. So the first thing I'm going to do is come up to this blue color chip in my objects order panel, and I'm going to right click on it, and then I'm going to come down and delete the color. So now I just have my palm tree, and I'm going to move that into the center of my hoop. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to change my hoop size, and I want to use the 120 by 120 hoop, so I have a little bit more real estate to work with. And I want to add some coconuts to this palm tree. So I'm going to come up to File and click Merge. And I'm going to go to my palm folder and I'm going to scroll down and I have a set of coconuts right there. So I'm going to click on my coconuts, but they're obviously way too big for my palm tree. And I don't want three of them. And I don't want all this sand and shading. So the first thing I'm going to do is come up to the pink color chip for the coconuts, and I'm going to right click on that, and I'm going to delete the color. And then I'm going to click on the next color chip to see exactly which brown this is. Is it the brown in the coconuts or is it the brown shading? So it turns out it's the brown shading. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to right click on it and click delete color, and I only want 2 coconuts for my palm tree. So I'm going to use the freehand select tool and I'm going to draw around these 2 coconuts. And once I double click on my starting line, they turn red, so I can click the split icon. And I'm going to come back to my objects order panel and select the single coconut, and I'm going to delete. And now I have this little leg that's hanging off the side and I have this little extension here. So what I'm going to do for that is I need to select my 2 coconuts, and then I'm going to use my points editing mode tool and I'm going to zoom way in. I want to make sure I'm in the normal view because if I'm in like 3D matte, I don't see my stitch points. So I'm going to go back to normal view, and I zoomed in a little too much, but I'm going to left click on that node and delete it, and then I can hold down my shift button and click several more nodes in succession, and I can get that node over there, and I can delete all of those at one time. I can click that one, and then I'm going to come back and hold my shift button again, and you see my mouse now has a little plus sign after it. So I'm going to keep clicking on these extra nodes that are sitting out on the side here, and I'm going to delete, and I only got a couple left, and I'm going to get that one too. And so now my um, coconuts look better, and I'm going to turn off my points editing mode by clicking on the select mode, and I'm going to move my coconuts into place, but they are obviously way too big for this design. And so I'm just going to use this resizing node on the corner of the box. When you use the one on the corner of the box, it resizes both horizontally and vertically. So I'm going to resize these down until they look a little bit more appropriate for the size of this design. And then I'm just going to select them and kind of move them up right about there, which looks okay. So now the next thing I want is to put the word palm on this design. So I'm going to go to my alphabets, and I decided I'm going to use alphabet 6, and I changed my connection type to floating stitches because I want my letters to be individual letters. I don't want them to be um, be, have a floating stitch connecting them. So I'm going to type the word PALM, and I'm going to go to my properties panel, and I'm going to uncheck keep aspect ratio because I want to change the width and the height individually. So I'm going to change my width to about 14, I believe. Actually, I'm going to change both. So I'll just change both to 14. And so I'm going to click OK. And you can see my word came in. It looks like it's just one word, but if you look, wow, just one object. But if you look in the objects panel, you can see that it's actually 4 objects. And I'm going to move it over here to the side a little bit. And now I'm going to click outside of the selection box, and I'm going to come up to the P and just select it. And I'm going to use my turn rotate left 90-degree button, and I'm going to bring the P down here. And then I'm going to do the same with the A, and I'm going to rotate it to the left, and the L, and then the M. And there was one thing about this font that I wasn't really crazy about, and that's this little hat that I call it that's sitting on top of the A. So I want to get rid of that. So I'm going to select my A, and then I'm going to use the freehand select tool, and so I can see all my stitch nodes. And I want to keep this one at the very top because it's kind of connecting all the others, and if I get rid of it, then I'm going to have to put a stop or something else in there. So I'm going to click on the first one, and I'm going to hold my shift button down, and I'm going to start selecting the other ones. And you can tell when you have them selected because they turn a darker color. I'm going to get that one and this one over here. That one's being hard to get. And I'm going to then use my delete button and delete them. And then I'm going to select this one up here. I'm just going to actually bring it here, and I'm going to delete this one right there. And so now my A no longer has that hat on it. And then I'm going to kind of look at my spacing, and I think my M is too close to my L. So I'm going to move that up just a hair. Give it a little bit more room there. Maybe like that. And I want to select all my letters now. So I'm going to select the P, and I'm going to come down and use my shift button and with my left mouse button click. So now I have all my letters, and I want to do some aligning. So I'm going to first I'm going to try to align the centers to see if I can make sure that my letters are a little bit more straight. And I don't like my spacing real well, and so I'm going to try to space equally vertically. And so I'm going to click OK. And so it did move my A and my L, so my letters are spaced a little bit more evenly. And I still think it looks a little bit too big. So I'm going to select outside, and I'm going to select my M again. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to move my M down closer to my L. And now I'm going to use my select all my letters again and go back to the align, and I'm going to space equally again. And so now it kept the P and the M where it was, and it adjusted the A and the L to fill the space. So the next thing I want to do is I want to make this into an applique. And so I need to bring in some kind of a frame that I can put around this to create an applique. So I'm going to click File and Merge, and I'm going to go to my frame folder, and I'm going to use this frame by Elsa, and it's this one here, Applique 7. And so it has all these flowers and things in it, which I don't want. So I need to figure out what part of this design I want to keep and what part I want to delete. So if you look closely, you can see that there's a running stitch in underneath this satin stitch, and that corresponds to the white. And so then I just need to decide whether this gold is the gold for the satin stitch or is it the gold inside this flower. Well, it makes more sense that it's the gold for the satin stitch because you would have to stitch all these pink petals before you did the center. So I'm going to right click on this second color chip, this gold one here, and I'm going to come down and I'm going to split after color. And so now you can see my frame is a separate object and the flowers are a separate object. So I'm going to select the flowers and I'm going to click on the delete trash can. But my frame is too short and too wide. I don't like the shape of it. So I'm going to select my frame in my objects order panel and I'm going to come over to set size. And so I want my frame to be um, a little narrower but taller. So I need to deselect keep aspect ratio. And so I'm going to decrease my frame size down to about 85%. Maybe not that much. Oops, I'm going 90. And I want to increase my height to about 115, I believe, something close to that. And so I'm going to click OK. And so now you can see I have a taller and narrower frame. But if you look at this applique, it only has one, it's either a placement stitch or a tack down stitch. I don't know which it is. So I want a placement stitch and a tack down stitch. So I'm going to separate my two colors. So again, I'm going to right click on the white color and I'm just going to click separate all colors and that separates my white and my gold. So I want to have both a placement stitch and a tack down stitch. So I'm going to select this white and I'm just going to do a copy and paste. And so now I have two whites. And so I don't want them to be the same color. And actually, I don't want them to be white at all. I want them to be something that I can see easily on this tan background here. So I'm going to right click on my color chip and come down to change color from catalog. And I'm just going to pick any color. It's not important which colors they are. I'm going to again right click on this other white here and again choose color from catalog and I'll pick this blue gray and so I have my tack down I have a tack down stitch and I also have a placement stitch. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move one of these because they're identical, it doesn't matter which one I move, up to the very first position. And so since this one's not in the correct order to begin with, the gray one, I'm going to select it and then left click on it and hold my mouse button down and then move my mouse up. And now you can see my arrow key is dragging a piece of paper. And so when I get to the palm trees, I'm going to let up and I get this drop down menu and I'm going to say place before. And the reason I did this was because I actually did this design in two parts. I got my fabric, my fashioned fabric, and I hooped it, and I sewed this placement stitch, and then I sewed my palm tree and my coconuts and my letters, and then I took my material out of my hoop, and I put new stabilizer in it, and I floated my towel. And so then I um, stitched out this placement stitch here, and I actually had to create a third one. So I will do that now. And so I'm going to do another copy and paste. And again, I'm going to change the color. And I'll pick something different again. And I need to move this into place because I need it before my satin stitch. So I'm just going to left click on it, hold it, drag it up, and insert before. And so now I had trimmed, after I had stitched this part of the design, I had and removed it from the hoop. I had trimmed within maybe a quarter of an inch all the way around this outline stitch. And then after it's stitched this placement stitch on my towel, I put just a tad of spray adhesive on the back of my fashion fabric, and I laid it directly over this placement stitch. And then I stitched the um, tack down stitch, and then I stitched the satin stitch. So the only thing that showed up on the back of my towel was the frame, and I didn't have all the um, stitches and stuff from the design. And I didn't want the palm to be in blue, so I selected the P, and I'll select the M, and I'm going to join them, and I want them to be the same rust color as the palm tree, or I should say the coconut. And so I'm going to just left click on the rust and drag it down on top of the blue and select identical. So now my word palm is in rust, and I definitely didn't want my um, frame to be this mustard orange yellow color. So I went to change color from catalog again. And I wanted this, I think it's called rattan. And so I'll just type that. And actually I'll just use amber beige. So that's closer. So I was pretty happy with this, but I was wondering how this actually is going to look on a kind of cream colored towel. So I came up to my hoop and I chose my hoop color and I double clicked on it. And so then I um, looked at all these different colors and I thought, well, maybe I want it white, maybe that's, and so that was kind of glaring. And I'm like, no, I want to look at it more on a cream color. And so I again selected my hoop and did double clicked on hoop. And so then I looked at all these different colors. So there's not really a cream. And so I used this brown. And so then when I use this little cursor arrow, I can move that up, and you can see in the solid color window, it's changing, but it's changing to more of a pink, and I don't really want a pink, that's too pinkish. And right off the edge of the screen here, you can see there's a little black kind of a circle with lines on it. So I grabbed that and I moved it down because this gives me better color choices. And so now I'm going to move this arrow up just a hair, and we'll see if I got closer to a cream. And I click OK. So then I got a better, it's still a little bit too pink, but I got a better idea of how my design was going to look. So actually then I just came and I saved this as one design. And so I joined it, and then I made sure it was centered in the hoop. It was just a tad off. And then I saved it to my um, palm folder. And so it reverted back to the name that I originally named my palm tree, which was Kev for my husband. And so now I'm just going to say, I'll call it palm tree applique. And kind of screwed up because I still have cap locks on. And so I'm going to click save. And so that's how I made that design. I should have showed you one additional thing on this design. I should have color sorted this before I saved it. So I have my design selected, and you can see I have brown rust here. And so I'm going to come up to Smart Color Sort, which is right next to the Delete button, and I'm going to click on the Smart Color Sort button, and I have my maximal difference set at 0, and so I'm going to click it, and so now my even though the brown was between the two rusts, it combined the two rusts into one, so that eliminated one thread change. Another design that I wanted to show you was a shark design that my friend bought. And so this is the design here. And this design has lots of issues going on with it. And so the first thing I noticed are all these bubbles, these little white dots that are supposed to represent water bubbles. And so you see some have running stitches, which are the dotted lines that are running between, but some have solid lines. So this has a solid line, and so does that. But then we have the dotted lines, which represent jump stitches. And if you're ever confused about whether a connection stitch like this is a jump stitch or a running stitch, you can look in 3D, either 3D or 3D mat. And if they disappear, it's a jump stitch, but if they stay like these did, then you know it's a running stitch. And have you ever had a design where you thought it was a jump stitch, and so then it jumps from here and it goes stitch, 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 stitch all the way across, and then it changes color, and you have to rip out all those stitches, and it's just not one solid running stitch. And so that is the situation here. You can kind of tell there's a little dimple right there. So what I want to do is I want to eliminate any possibility of having extra stitch nodes on these running stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my points editing node, and I'm just going to, I need to be in I need to be in normal view. And so now my stitch nodes pop up, and so I can see that there's definitely stitch points in between these bubbles, which would make it very difficult to trim away those stitches. So I'm just going to right click on one of them and click delete, and again, and just repeat this. And so then I will, this one doesn't have any, and I think that was the only one, a set of bubbles that were had that. And these down here that are on the yellow, they're so close together that I'm not going to mess with those. But the other thing is I want to change these this stitch from a running stitch to a jump stitch. So I need to find out what node this stitch is connected on to. So I'm going to go there, and that was easy. It was right on top. And so I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to go to stitch type, and then I'm going to, it tells me it's a running stitch, and so I'm going to change it to floating stitch. And so then I'm going to click OK. Then it asks if I want to insert a tie on or a tie off. And usually I uh, click yes. So I'm going to say yes, and so it adds a couple extra stitches there, and you can see that my solid line is now a dotted line. And so I'm going to do the same thing for the other stitch, and so I'm going to hope this is the correct one, and so I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to click stitch type, and again it tells me it's a running stitch, and I'm going to change it to a floating stitch and click OK, and yes, and again my line turned to a dotted line. So now all those longer running stitches are now jump stitches. And then I have this here in the middle of no man's land. I'm not quite sure what this is. It looks like a white stitch, and it doesn't belong there. This is a, And so I'm not sure how that stitch got there, but it goes way over to this um, water droplet over here. And so I'm just going to drag these in like so. And that kind of creates a tie off there. So then the next thing that was wrong with this design, if I take it out of stitch editing mode, you can see that this outline on the teeth is way off. There's stitches jumping way up, and you have outlines along the edges of these teeth, and the stitches don't go out to the outline. So one, when you stitch this, this white is going to jump up onto his, I'll call it lip, and you're going to have gaps between uh, your outline stitching and the stitching for the teeth. So that's the next thing I'm going to address. And so since I just want to work on the teeth and I don't want all these other colors behind there interfering, I'm going to hide my gray color. And so here's my gray color, and I'm just going to left click on the color chip. And so my gray's gone. And so now you can kind of see that better. And I'm going to center this in my hoop a little bit better. And I'm going to go back to my points editing mode. And so I'm going to click on points editing, and I'm going to have to draw a box or drag a box. So I'm just going to start out here and drag a box, hold down my left mouse button and drag a box and move my mouse until I have what I want inside the box. And I'm not going to really look at any of this blue right now. I'm just interested in these teeth. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this and I'm going to drag this down inside here. And the same thing for over here. And this actually makes kind of a X. So I'm just going to bring it and try to straighten that out. So that fixed that. And then I think there was a problem over here a place. You have this stitch that's jumping way up high. So I'm going to bring it back down within the teeth. And again, you have this stitch that's, I don't think you really need it. So I'm going to just delete it. And then you have all these stitches. And so this is kind of a mess here. And so I'm going to bring that kind of there. And I'm just kind of guessing where these go. I'll bring that out closer to the edge. And this stitch is not necessary. So I'm going to delete that one. I'm going to delete this one. Probably delete that one. And bring that down. And so I think this is too high here. So I'm going to delete that. And then you have a big conglomeration of stitches right here that could cause um, a thread nest. So I try to delete that. I don't want that one. I want to put that one back. And so anyways, I just did an undo to put it back. And so this is just a short little stitch that's not really necessary. So I cleaned that up a hair. And so then I'm going to go into my 3D view and look at it, my 3D mat. And so right now it already is looking better. I still have this wayward stitch right here. So, and you can see there's a little gap here where the tan's showing through. And so that tells me I have to make a little bit of an adjustment there. So I'm going to go back to normal and I'm going to find this, I'm going to zoom in on this stitch over here. And so I'm not sure, I'm just going to delete it because there's a pile of stitches right here. And I'm going to delete this and this and that. I think it connected to there. So we'll do that. And then I'm going to look back at 3D mat. And I'm getting closer. It's improving. And so, but I still have a couple stitches that are above that outline stitch. So I think I'll just delete that one. and take a look. And probably this one, so I'm going to delete that. And kind of delete these there. So that's looking better, and you can see that gap here now, and there's a gap here. And so already the teeth, and you can see little gaps here. So the teeth are already looking better. And so I'm going to go back to normal view and zoom in. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a node, so this one, and I'm going to hold down my shift button, and I'm just going to select a bunch of nodes as I go down this line. And you can see I have that little plus sign at the end of my cursor. And so now I'm going to let up on my shift key, and I'm going to just drag these out a hair, and then I can maybe move this one out a little further. I don't really want to cross the line, I just want to come up to it. And so I'm going to move this one in to fill that gap there. And then I'm not sure what this does. I'm going to bring that up, fill that gap better, and bring this one over. These teeth are kind of a jumbled mess, as you can see. There's just stitches everywhere, and there's no way I could ever straighten this all out. So I'm just going to, again, try to fill this gap here a little bit. This one's too far back, so I'm going to start here and hold down my shift button and bring these up to the line. And then I'm going to bring this stitch up and bring it over to fill this space a little better. And this one needs to move down a little bit. And so this is kind of evening this out. This design has not been resized. This is how it actually came when she purchased it. And so we spent a lot of time getting this design to look decent for her to use on this gift she was making. So we're going to kind of fill that in, and I'll bring that over. And this one extends across the line, so I want to bring that, and so does that one. And then this here, I'm going to bring that up so when it crosses over, it's not crossing in the void there. And then again, I'm going to come down here, and you can see this tooth doesn't even have any stitches at the point. So again, I'm going to just kind of select a few of these here to fill in this void, and I'm holding down that shift key again. And it doesn't matter that those stitches jumped a little bit, because I can move them back up and bring them over. And so that's a little better. And then I need to come down here, and it's like, what am I going to do here? So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to just pull this off to the side here, and I'm going to hold down my control button, and I'm just going to add a few stitch points here. And as you see, my cursor turned to the needle when I held down my control button. And so now I can place a few of these stitches in this area here. And I don't want, this is a small area. It looks bigger because I'm really zoomed in. So now I'm just going to delete the extra ones I don't need. And I'll just delete that one too. And so that kind of filled in that point there on his tooth. And so again, over here, I could just probably just move these here, move these down a little bit to fix that. And I think that tooth doesn't look too bad. And then I have this kind of jumbled mess right here again. So I'll bring this, a few of these here. I'm going to drag this one out more and this one down a little bit more. That kind of fills that void. And then the point of the tooth needs to be sharp. And so again, I think I'll just bring this down like I did before and hold my control button down and add some points here. And so this point is connected to that one. So it'd be easier just to bring, I'm going to bring that kind of down here and bring this back up this way. And then that one's going to go there. And I'll stick that one inside the line, bring that down, bring that kind of to the point, and fill in those little areas. So I think I probably have the teeth, hopefully have the teeth looking better. Now looking at them in 3D matte. And so far, I think it does look better. There's still maybe one little stitchy thing there. And so I could come up here and you can kind of see it. It's just right there. And so that takes care of that. And one other thing I kind of noticed, because I'm kind of, oh, you still have gaps here when you actually zoom in. You can see them. And so here I would click here and hold the shift button down and click maybe these 5 or so along this row here to fill that void. And so, and then over here, I think it was on the first tooth, there's some stitch in here. I'm going to delete a couple of these. I'm not sure. I'm going to bring that one out to the edge. I'm going to bring that down like that. There was a stitch in there. I could just kind of see it. And so when you get this shadowing like this, that usually means there's a stitch there. And see, this void is a lot better over here. I didn't quite get it all. So I'm just going to go back over here. And it's probably this stitch right here that's causing that shadow. And so I'm going to just keep playing with these until this doesn't even need to be there. There's too many stitches there. And so now I got rid of that shadow, so that cleaned that up a little bit. So the teeth look much better than they did. And so then we had problems with just a lot of multiple other things here. I'm going to turn off my stitch edit node. And these eyeballs on these sunglasses, when I zoom in on them, they're just, I mean, they're just a total mess. And so what I did was I hid the sunglasses. I came up and uh, left clicked on the green color, and so that hides that. And then I also have to hide the lenses, and I deleted, not deleted, but I hid the color of the lenses. And then I came and used my freehand select tool, and I came down here and I just deleted this because it was going to be way too much work to try to fix. And so I selected it and I split it and then I deleted it and then I unhid my sunglasses. And so I have holes here, and how I fixed this was I went to my text and I picked a text that was pretty image that has a square dot. I don't want a square one. And so I want a period that's round, so that was fine. And so I'm just going to come down here and type a period, and then I want my period to be pretty big, so I'm going to, I want to make sure keep aspect ratio is checked because I want it pretty round. So I'm going to say, I don't know, this is probably too big, but we'll go with that. This is just a guess. Oh, not too bad. And so there I have my, oh, that was a dot. Oh, here's my period. And maybe it's too big. So I need to select my period and bring it over. Yes, it's way too big. So I'm going to do an undo, undo, undo until my period disappears. And then I'm going to come back to that and I'm going to maybe decrease this back to about 30 and try it again. And let's see how we do this time. Still too big. I should have gone smaller instead of larger. So I'm going to just do a undo, undo, and one more time. So properties, and maybe I should have just left it at 25. Oops, and Okay, so now I have a blue dot there, and I'm going to do a copy and paste, and a blue dot there, and then I just changed them to the same white by left clicking on that white chip and holding my mouse button down. And then when I get to the blue chip, I let up and set identical. And I'm going to do the same here. And I'm going to set identical. And then I can join them. So, I mean, that looks a little bit better. I actually did go in and hid the sunglass lenses again. And I did because it had that kind of jaggedy edge to it. And I just kind of pulled some of these out to kind of emulate that same look that it originally had. Something like that. So I could look at 3D matte and turn my sunglass lens back on. And because I'm still in points editing mode, it's making all the colors white. So when I go back to select mode, they'll come back to black. And this red stitch here is not a red stitch. Ember just does that when you use the points editing mode. Sometimes the last stitch that you manipulate will remain red, but it's not really red. So don't be surprised by that. And then you can see he's got this little like notch in his fin, and you got this little stitch sitting out here. So we were kind of um, picky about things. And so I need to draw a selection box around this fin in order to fix that little stitch here. So I'm just going to drag a box and bring that in. And then this fin over here was an issue. So I'm going to drag a box and zoom in, and you can see there's stitches missing there. So I just filled that in like that. And so I just kept working at this design. We really worked on these teeth. These teeth look really bad, and the teeth on this fish were absolutely horrendous. Um, this one's actually like chipped off. And so anyway, um, we spent maybe an hour working on this design, and you can see on the pink here, I think there's a stitch right there. So I'm going to go to normal and go to my, maybe not, and I'm just going to, yep, there's a stitch there, which would have made this very difficult to trim away. So I'm going to just delete that stitch, and then I'm going to, hopefully this is the direction it's stitching, and do stitch type and change it to a floating, and click OK. And unfortunately, I grabbed the wrong end of this. So it actually made a floating stitch here instead of here. So I'm going to do an undo, and then I'm just going to come to the other end of this and repeat what I just did. Do stitch type, floating, and now you can see I have a floating stitch, which is the dotted line. So anyways, as I said, this design needed a lot of editing, and I did want to show you how to recognize floating stitches from running stitches and how you can change a running stitch into a floating stitch if that's what you want to do. And so we ended up changing the colors of these fish completely. We did a major color sort on this. And so if I put these back together, these little eyeballs that I did, then I could join them, and I would try to do a color sort and see if it's going to, and it didn't put this white back with the other white. I thought it might. So anyways, this is just an example of a design that was extremely poorly digitized that we were able to rescue. There was other things like there's this little running stitch. As I said, I was being really kind of picky about things that I wanted to make sure looked right. You got like a running stitch right here, I believe. Yes, this black stitch is a running stitch and that white stitch is a running stitch, but there's no nodes there. And so um, I probably wouldn't mess with changing that. Um, and go back. So there's actually no stitch node on this running stitch, so I would just leave it because it's actually just going to act like a um, running stitch. I mean a jump stitch. And then again, I have this white sitting out here, not sure why. So I'm just gonna kind of stick it in here, bury it, and so then it turns to a um, jump stitch. So you can kind of clean stuff up like that. And I just buried it in there somewhere. It gets kind of lost because um, everything within here was a big jumble to begin with. And you can see that there's a lot of over stitching here. This black on the white. And personally, I would have probably done a mask on this. So this is the finished design that we ended up with after doing a lot of editing to it. You can see the teeth on all three sharks look much sharper. They actually look like shark teeth. We cleaned up these fins so that the ends, edges stitched out better. We got rid of those little dimples. As I said, I fixed the eyes and we changed the colors of the two little small fish. And so that's how this design ended up, and it did stitch out quite well on her project. And so I hope you enjoyed this video. My next video is going to hopefully focus on more with actual stitch editing, where you add stitches, delete stitches, change running stitches to jump stitches, and working with designs in that fashion.